Dialogue, misunderstood, misused word. Arguably, unless you have been in a true dialogue group or experienced dialogue in a dialogue cohort, you don't know what dialogue is. Dialogue comes from the Greek, dialogus, which means flow of meaning. The last chapter of my book, the last 2 chapters, are devoted to communication because we don't communicate. We talk at each other. We don't have shared meaning. She says to him, "You don't know how to be intimate." He says, "I don't know how to be intimate." I said, "Time out. What does the word mean to you? What does the word mean to you?" Shared meaning. It's a starting place. Then there's an aha. Oh, you meant sexual intimacy? I meant emotional intimacy. We need shared meaning to begin effective communication. Otherwise, these words are just ping-pong balls. We're knocking them back and forth. Now, shared meaning creates respect. It means I care enough that I want to know what the word means to you. So in case it means something different than me, at least we can have coherence. It doesn't have to mean the same thing. But we can have a coherent communication if we start with shared meaning. I wrote an article years ago called The 5% Rule, which is, in a disagreement, our natural tendency is to repudiate and refute and prove we're right and you're wrong. So I thought, what if we had a 5% rule? What if my goal is to find 5% of what you're saying that I can agree with? And I temporarily suspend the 95%. And I validate the 5%. But then I move into shared inquiry. Shared inquiry is peaceful and it's part of dialogue, which I'll get to shortly. Now, if I have not only validated 5% of what you said and inquired to learn more, you're now feeling heard and understood. That's going to leave you in a better position to take in what I have to say. So in all impasses, I start with shared meaning, shared inquiry, and then the 5% rule. Then I further it by moving into the difference between literal thought and participatory thought. If we're in disagreement, we speak in literal thought, going nowhere. But if I say, you know, when you raised that point, I noticed my reaction coming up. Here's the thought that was arising for me. You're still listening. But if I swat it away and say, no, you're wrong, where are we going? So here's how dialogue works. I remember the first dialogue group that I taught. There was a guy in the group who was my age, which meant that we went to college in the 60s. And he said to me afterwards, he said, this was like an LSD trip. It was otherworldly. It's a shift in consciousness. Dialogue means there is no right or wrong. We suspend our beliefs in what we know. When I do dialogue, we sit in a circle and I bring in a Native American talking stick. And the person talking holds the stick. And when they're finished, they put it down and nobody until they count to 5 can pick it up. That permits us to respond rather than react. So in dialogue, I have to set aside my assumptions because I'm interested in knowing what your experience is, what your thoughts are. In a way, it's kind of like that transdisciplinary approach where there can be growth. So dialogue is the vehicle for breaking through impasse.